Well, Liberal leader Sussan Ley has promised to announce an immigration policy before Christmas as she attempts to make the coalition competitive again. But she's being very careful to frame cuts to immigration in such a way that the left isn't able to frame her as a racist, the way they did, ironically, with Senator Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price when she spoke out earlier in the year.
We will announce our migration principles before the end of the year. It's not a criticism of any migrant or migrant community. It is a massive failing of governments to build the infrastructure that our communities need, and they're rightly concerned about that.
Yeah, and it isn't just the left she has to watch out for. Moderates in her own party are warning they won't tolerate what they're calling a Hanson-light policy that put the blame on migrants for the housing crisis. An unnamed Coalition MP told the Sydney Morning Herald the Nationals are obsessed with adopting the same intellectually corrupt views on migration as Pauline Hanson. And at the moment, the Liberals are too obsessed with keeping the coalition together at the cost of our integrity and, in turn, social cohesion.
Meanwhile, One Nation's Pauline Hanson spoke at a rally in Melbourne today where she wasn't shy about blaming mass immigration for everything from the housing shortage to problems finding a doctor.
Under this government, we brought in over 1.5 million people into the country. That's why your housing has increased. That's why your health services are slackened. That's why you have the problems of getting jobs and the problems that we have in Australia. All of it comes from high immigration.
Look, I'm glad to see that the coalition is finally talking about immigration, because all the top issues, I mean, the top issue obviously is cost of living, we all know that, but you can tie every other issue that people care about really to immigration in some way. You know, housing is a top issue. Well, we know that immigration affects that. The cost of living is affected by immigration. It all in some way comes back to immigration. But they don't seem to want to put a number on it, you know, that they'll say, OK, well, we'll have tests for people to get a visa to say that you adhere to Australian values, but they don't want to put a number on it. Until you can actually commit to a number, it all seems a bit hollow, I think. Yeah,
look, I totally agree with you. If you can't put a figure on it, why bother coming up with an immigration policy? And I just make a point about what Sussan Ley said there, Caleb. She said, quote, "My criticism of this government around migration policy is not a criticism of any migrant or migrant community." So already there's this precursor of, oh, like, you know, hang on, you know, I'm not being racist here. Again, and this is what it comes down to. It is not racist to have a discussion about migration in this country. It is not racist to have a discussion about the types of people we are bringing into this country. And that the moderates are out there worried about the term mass migration. Well, what else do they want it to be called? Because it is mass migration when you've got 1.2 million migrants having come into this country. That is mass migration, and you can't dance around the fact that it has, in fact, had an impact on the housing crisis or as you said, the cost of living.
But this has been the problem with the migration debate for so long, is that even saying there is an issue with migration has somehow become a byword for racist. And we should be able to be grown up enough to say, well, I'm just talking about the concept of migration. I'm not necessarily even talking about the particular people, but it is obvious that when you bring in more than 1 million people in a matter of a few years, that you change the economy, you change culture, you put pressure on loads of different things, and then you add on top of that, you know, 75% or thereabouts of the jobs being created in this country are somehow linked to government money. So we don't have real growth. We're just pumping the country full of immigrants and saying, well, that'll fix the problem. It's not actually fixing the problem, and it's not racist to say so.
No, and it's the only thing propping up the Ponzi scheme economy, so it's all well and good for the Prime Minister to go, we're not in a recession, Jim Chalmers, no, we're OK. Well, you know...
Take it all away and let's see what it looks like,
Take it all away. And I'll just make a point as well about Pauline Hanson. So she was heckled. So she was at one of the anti-mass migration rallies today in Melbourne. When she got up to the stage, it was anti-racism protesters that crashed that event, telling her to go, you know, go back, leave, blah, blah, blah.
Go back to where you came from. I thought that was racist to say.
Well, exactly. But it's only racist, you know, when the right side of politics say that, right? You know, the left, they're very tolerant, aren't they? But exactly what she said was correct. We need to have a debate on this. Let's hope, Caleb, we actually have an adult debate in this country about it.